I know that this is an area of tremendous interest nationally. We know, especially since the Netflix documentary came out, we're getting a lot of calls. Let me begin by saying, kind of walk you through a simple explanation of the legal issues here. There are two vehicles upon which people that have been convicted of a crime, well, there are many, but the two are a habeas and the other one's a resentencing. They can ask for a review of their conviction.
Sir, I'm sorry, just the thumping on the...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's okay. Thank you. Yeah. Under a habeas, in this case, we've gotten petitions for the brothers on both. Under a habeas, basically what someone that was convicted is asking a review of new evidence that had been made available. Had that evidence been available to the court and the jury at the time of the trial, perhaps the outcome may have been different.
New evidence.
And then there's a second process, and it's called resentencing under California law, where a prosecutor can evaluate whether someone has been rehabilitated, and based on their actions and the fact that they're not involved in criminal activity inside of the prison, that their sentence could be reevaluated. In this case, again, the Menendez brothers are asking for a review through both of those vehicles. We have not decided on the outcome. We are reviewing the information, but I think it's also important that we recognize that both men and women can be the victims of sexual assault. We started a consent campaign to be timed with the red zone, and for those of you who are not familiar with the red zone, is when new kids are going into college and for the first time they're away from home, and we know that there's an increase in sexual assaults during that period of time. Now, most of the victims are usually young women, but there are men also that are victimized. And in our consent campaign, we made it very clear that only a clear and desirable yes means yes, and anything else is not consent. And I spoke very clearly, especially to young men, because most of the time are young women that are the victims of sexual assault.
No, I like that he's, I don't know who this guy is, but I like that he's addressing that sexual assault is not always women. If you ever watched the Menendez trial, I implore you, at least watch the boys' testimonies. It's absolutely heartbreaking. The cousins knew. The aunt knew. It was a different time, and I love that this man is acknowledging that we don't think like that anymore.
But they also have an obligation to understand that consent has to be very clear. But we also recognize that sometimes men and boys are the victims of sexual assault. We're seeing now the allegations that in the case of Sean Combs, according to the civil lawyers, about a half of the victims, and it could be way over 100, were men. And we have seen over and over again when both young boys and young girls are molested.
Yes, we have to talk about this.
Today,
I love this.
I want to make very clear, we have not conceded one way or the other. We're not saying that there was anything wrong with the original trial. We have been given evidence. We have been given a photocopy of a letter that allegedly was sent by one of the brothers to another family member talking about him being the victim of molestation. We've also got evidence that was provided by the defense, by his lawyers, that one of the members of the Menudo band alleged that he was molested by the father.
Yes. Let's talk about Menudo. Oh, I could go on and on about Jose Menendez. Jose Menendez molested the Menudo band, the little boy band. He was the executive of Sony Music. Let that sink in. Think about that. Sean Diddy Combs, Jose Menendez, was the executive of Sony Records. Let that sink in.
None of this information has been confirmed we are not at this point ready to say that we either believe or do not believe that information. But we're here to tell you that we have a moral and an ethical obligation to review what is being presented to us and make a determination based on the resentencing side, whether they deserve to be resentenced, even though they were clearly the murderers, because they have been in prison for 35 years and they have paid back their dues to society.
35 years.
Or whether habeas is appropriate if there was evidence that was not presented to the court at that time, and had that evidence been presented, perhaps a jury would have come to a different conclusion. I don't think there is any question in this case that the boys, or the men, young men, one was 19, the other one was 21 at the time, that they murdered their parents.
Right.
I think that's factual, it's been established. I think the questions that are presented to us is two simple questions. One possibility, what is being alleged by his lawyers, not by us, that there was evidence that had that evidence been presented to the jury, the outcome of this case would have been different. And second, under California law, a path to resentencing where a prosecutor can evaluate whether someone has been rehabilitated, and if so, ask the court to determine whether the person should be resentenced. If they get resentenced, there are multiple things that could happen. They could walk out based on what the court decides, or they can have the sentence given a different shape, and perhaps they will stay on, but for a longer period, lesser period of time, or they can have a new trial. Right, and those are all options, and we will evaluate all of it. We have a hearing coming up on November 29th, and until we get there, we're not sure yet which direction this will go. Are there any questions? Oh, by the way, one of the things that I want to add too, because I think it's important that you contextualize what resentencing means. Since I've been in office, we have resentenced over 300 people. Of those, only 4 have reoffended, which is probably one of the lowest recidivism rate of any group that I'm aware of. If you do the math, and I'm here standing because if I was better at math, I would be teaching math or doing something else. It's a very low rate. In fact, if our recidivism rate for all the crimes that we face were to be that low, we would be the safest society in the world, and we're not. So just so you understand also, this concept of resentencing is a concept that we have used successfully many times and will continue to do where it's appropriate. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Other than the November 29th.
Excuse me, I got a question. I'll get to all of you guys. Yes.
Given the cultural shift in how we view sexual assault, do you think that this case would have been handled differently if it was tried today?
Look, because I don't know yet the validity of all the evidence that was presented as opposed to the evidence that was not presented, I'm not here to make judgment on that, but there is no question that today would have been a greater level of sensitivity to the way the case was looked at.
Absolutely.
We've had this evidence for over a year now.
So did you hear what he said? If this happened now, this case would have been looked at differently. Absolutely it would have. And they've had the evidence, this new evidence, for a year now. And November 29th, we'll find out. He's got people in his office, he says, investigating that feel both ways, that the guys shouldn't be released and that they should. And those people are going to present their evidence to him, and he's going to ultimately make a decision, I guess.
Why speak out today and now?
Well, there's a combination. It takes a long time, right? We get a lot of petitions for resentencing. We get a lot of petitions to evaluate cases for habeas. We investigate this very, very carefully. Often we go back, and not only do we go through all the original investigation, but we go through trial transcripts. We may, obviously, in the case of habeas, we may be looking at additional evidence. So this is not a thing that we take lightly. The fact that we have resentenced, for instance, 300 people and only 4 have reoffended so far is because of the work is so thorough. Yes, sir.
Other than the November 29th hearing, what's kind of the
time frame or the timeline? Do you expect to make a decision after that hearing? And are you leaning towards one way or the other as far as having this resentencing?
Yeah, I'm not leaning in any direction right now. I'm keeping an open mind. We have people in the office that are looking at this very carefully, very experienced lawyers that are looking at this. That evidence will be presented to me, their recommendation will be presented to me, but the final decision will be mine. Yes, sir.
The habeas petition was filed last year, and I believe your office has been putting 90-day extensions for the hearing. Do you expect that there might be another extension, or is that November 29th hearing, is there going to be
Yeah, my intent is to be able to put finality to this, but I cannot tell you with any certainty because I still don't know how much work may need to be done. That's still pending.
Yep, Jillian,
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
right. They were tried twice.
Look, I mean, there are differences of opinion. There are differences of opinion within the office, and that is a healthy part of the process, right? You don't want to have everybody agreeing to any one thing. And then one of the things that I personally do well is by listening to different opinions and different ways of looking at evidence or looking at a particular case or the law. So there are people in the office that would tell you that this case should never be neither resentenced nor a habeas should be granted. There are other people in the office that believe that this should be evaluated carefully and that there may be a process there on the path. I will make the final decision based on all those conversations.
I mean, that said, though, the family has also said that they should be free. Does that?
That's correct. The family, my understanding is that the family, by and large, would like them to be released. Yes, ma'am.
Has the increased focus on this case from the public affected your decision to re-examine this case?
Well, look, you know, when I was elected 4 years ago, I came on a very clear platform of looking at our work through a lens of a modern approach to criminal justice. And part of that is not getting simply locked up in what we did in the past, right? So there's no question that I may be more open to review things that other prosecutors may not.
See, I like this guy.
And that was the reason why I was elected. But I have to tell you, again, this is a careful, deliberate process. I will evaluate both the evidence that is presented by those that believe that no relief should be granted, and I will evaluate the evidence of those that believe that relief should be granted, and then I'll make a decision.
Do you believe Rob Rosella from Menudo that he was molested by the Menendez brothers' father?
Here we go.
I'm not in a place to tell you that I either believe him or disbelieve him. Yes, sir.
Is the family, as far as you understand, pretty united in wanting to see them walk out? Or are you hearing from other people close to the family or friends or other family members who want them to stay?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I know that certainly there are family members that believe that they should be released, but there may be other family members that disagree. Again, that would not be uncommon. Yes, sir.
Is there any kind of open case regarding the Rosello allegations in the DA's office? Is there an investigation or open case?
Not that I'm aware at this moment.
Has the DA's office interviewed the Menendezes since this?
You know what? This is an ongoing investigation. We're working through their lawyers, and we'll continue to work through their lawyers. They're both represented. Okay, thank you, everyone. Sí, como que no. Claro.
Okay, so you guys, I'm shocked at the poll. You guys, 67% of you have seen the testimony, 32% have not. So what I would like to do is go a little deeper. It's Friday night, why not? And show you guys a little footage from the trial. I could talk about this case night after night. I mean, I really feel very strongly about children and their claims being taken seriously. And I do agree with the DA that right now this would have been handled so much differently. And, you know, they did go out and spend money and they were called brats and they were, you know, accused of it being all about the money. But you have to understand, these guys were the sons. Picture P. Diddy's kids. Okay. Picture P. Diddy's kids. Their dad was a record exec for Sony, right? And if this happened right now, not saying they shouldn't do time, but they've been in jail for 35 years. we had a cousin also come out and say, I think this is him right here. Listen to this. This is their cousin. Yeah. This father had them showering and all kind of weird shit. Listen to this. Yeah, this is a guy who was an alleged child molester. I know, Connie, it's shocking. These guys have a story and they won't get a new trial. They'll just get released, I think. I don't think it's up for a new trial. I'm thinking it's relief, meaning you've done your time. And thank you, Mia, for being a member for 9 months. You could have had a whole ass human, and 67% of us is old farts. So they didn't even talk to each other about all this. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid.
Once you're old enough to know what a real sexual experience is, then it kind of hits them like this.
What if Maddie would have unalived Jen and Stefan, asking for a friend? Would you all want Madeline? I mean, let's say she grew up and did that. Would you all want her in prison for life? Or would you have some kind of, sympathy for her situation, knowing what Madeline went through if she grew up and unalived those two? Try to think about that. What would you feel about that?
Isn't really right. Or maybe they don't know.
They didn't need money. They were millionaires, right? They didn't need money. To say they did it for money is ridiculous. Those kids had everything and then some. Going to Princeton. They had the best of the best. I mean, they were multimillionaires. You guys say, hell no, you wouldn't want them to go to jail. Want her to go to jail.
No, until later.
No, but they were made fun of. Can you imagine people making fun of Madeline Soto? Think about it.
They talk to their closest friend like, well, your dad doesn't do this to you, or your...
But wait a minute. A lot of people were actually saying if Sheriff Stein's daughter was being essayed, that it would be okay, that he took matters into his own hand. What have we learned about narratives, especially with the Sebastian Rogers case? Hey, Lisa Rose, thank you for being a clicker for 14 months. I appreciate you. Wow. That's a long time. Over a year now. But think about narratives and how they're put out early on, right? If Jose Menendez was outed as a molester, it's just easy for them to just go to the police. Tell that to Diddy's victims. Tell Diddy's victims, they should have just went to the police. That is redonkulous. It's redonkulous. This is absolutely horrific to me. But what I think the catalyst was, SS, is that, no, they hadn't shared the information. However, Erik, the younger one. Okay, so Lyle was away at Princeton. He came home. Erik was planning on going away to school. Right before the murders, Jose told Erik, you're not fucking going to school. You're going to live here under my roof, and you're going to go to school and live at home. And then Erik started getting suicidal because he didn't see a way out. And honestly, I think that was the catalyst. I think Erik went to Lyle and said, it hasn't stopped. And that was when they put their stories together. Can you imagine them putting their stories of all these years together? It's freaking god awful. These guys were made fun of. They were called gay. They were called rich, spoiled brats. I mean, who was going to believe them? Who was going to have their back over their father, the record exec? Nobody. No fucking buddy. Do you think that his emotions are fake? His veins are popping out of his forehead. This is not fake, in my opinion. This is not fake. These boys were kept silent with dad's money. And yeah, they went out and spent it after they offed him. because it was probably the only way they knew. It was a big fuck you. This is real emotion, in my opinion. I mean, who actually thinks that this 25-year-old man who has been the cat's ass rich boy would ever want to say this in front of the nation? I mean, to plan it and say, oh, we're going to get on the stand and we're going to say our dad raped us and we're going to talk about how he put his penis in our mouths when we were little kids. I mean, for us to still have, this wasn't just like a couple hours of testimony. He testified about the SA for days. And then the jury couldn't come to a conclusion. So in the second trial, they weren't allowed to talk about the SA. Because you heard the investigator, oh boy, we got some problems here. Right? People are sympathizing with these boys. How dare they? We're going to watch the Menendez Netflix tomorrow night in Discord. You guys would like to join, all you have to do is be a member of the channel here or Everyday with Jay, or be a Patreon member, and you have entrance into the lounge. So we are not done yet, guys. We are on a roll tonight. Here is the Menendez brothers.
We have been following breaking news about the 1996 conviction of...
Hold on. It was a whoopsie. Whoopsie daisies.
We have been...
Okay, so this is going to be Mark Garagos. A lot of you guys know the famous, infamous attorney. Oh yeah, Jose had a lot of power and a lot of money. But the infamous Mark Garagos is their lawyer. And this is from yesterday. He speaks after the DA announces the review of that new evidence.
Following breaking news about the 1996 conviction of the Menendez brothers, LA County District Attorney George Gascon is reviewing new evidence of the case.
Let's get to that press conference being held right now by Mark Garagos, who represents the Menendez brothers.
Of the family on both sides. The reaction today by the DA is what I've been saying for the last basically year and a half. A year and a half ago, we filed a writ of habeas corpus. We presented two pieces of evidence. The one was a letter from Erik to Andy Cano, which predates the killings by 8 months. The other was a declaration.
Okay, by 8 months. The letter was 8 months prior to the murders.
By Roy Rossello, who is another victim of Jose.
Okay, the other piece of evidence includes Menudo. So Menudo has everything to do with this. The first piece of evidence was the letter to the cousin. The second piece of evidence is the fact that Roy Rossello says that Jose Menendez sexually abused him.
The combination of those two, we believe, provide more than ample basis to set aside the result of the second trial. For anybody who's been following this, you'll remember that the first trial ended with there were two juries. Out of those two juries, both of them voted more than half for not guilty on murder and were hung. By the time the second trial came along, it was on the heels 8 days, frankly. Evidence started 8 days after the acquittal of O.J. Simpson.
Exactly.
The rulings changed, even though it was the same judge. The prosecution changed, and frankly, they were deprived of what I consider to be a meritorious defense. They have now served 35 years. In that 35 years that they have served in prison, they've been model prisoners. They have worked tirelessly in the face of literally no ability or expectation that they would ever get out to reform not only themselves but the environment they find themselves. There has been a sea change in California. When they were convicted, California was in the throes of a prison expansion, a law and order expansion, and frankly, DA politics. And now we fast forward 35 years later, we've got a much more robust and evolved understanding of abuse, that yes, abuse can occur both with females and with males.
Exactly. And that was what was the problem back then. These guys were literally called gay and faggots and stuff. It was awful. It was awful. Can you imagine that happening today? God.
I think it's time. Their family thinks it's time. I believe that what you saw today with District...
They have been in jail so long that mullets came back around. Look at Lyle's mullet. They have been in prison for 35 years. So far that mullets came back.
It's time. I believe that what you saw today with District Attorney Gascon was that he has taken, I think, a rather bold step in that he has said he's going to make the final decision. It's it may not be a popular decision in prosecutorial circles, but I would think that in our culture, we've come a long way in the last 10 years.
Yes.
Maybe 15 years. I think we're at a point now where any reasonable person taking a look at this case believes they should be out. And based upon that, I'm gratified. I'm hoping that sometime before Thanksgiving, which is when the next the response is due, that the DA will either concede the habeas or join in us in asking for a resentencing. And I'll take a couple of questions and then I'll turn it over to Brian Friedman.
By the way, this was also Scott Peterson's lawyer.
And he's not here, but Cliff Gardner, who is my co-counsel, deserves a lot of credit, because anybody who's followed this case knows he was the lawyer that argued this case in front of the Ninth Circuit. In fact, if you watch or listen to the Ninth Circuit argument, none other than one of the appellate justices back then said rather astutely that they certainly look like they changed the rules of the game between trial number one and trial number two.
Protect his wife and daughter.
Yes, they were called all kinds of names, and the whole trial was based around their damn sweaters and what sweaters they were going to wear. But we're going to take a trip back with Fox 5 New York. This is called the Menendez murders. That was the news then. I want to take you guys back in time and give you perspective. I think it's important to look back on, what we think now, how we view things now. I think it's completely interesting to see how we've evolved. And this is just in our lifetime, guys. Smoke them if you got them. We're going back to 1989.
In 1989, Jose and Kitty Menendez were brutally murdered by their two sons, Lyle and Erik. The two brothers are currently serving life sentences in prison.
Well, today a new Netflix show by Ryan Murphy is bringing the infamous murders back into the spotlight.
And this is what some of the actual news coverage looked like back then.
In 1990, the two brothers...
In Los Angeles, a judge has declared a mistrial in the case against Erik Menendez. Ann McDermott has the details.
On August 20th, 1989, Lyle Menendez placed a frantic call to 911.
What's the problem? I'm trying to kill my parents.
The somebody who killed his parents turned out to be Lyle and his brother Erik. During their trial, the brothers admitted they shot and killed film company executive Jose Menendez and his wife Kitty in the den of their $4 million Beverly Hills home because, they said, of a dark family secret. According to the brothers, their father sexually abused them and their mother did nothing to stop him. Lyle told a chilling tale of Jose forcing him to have oral and anal sex.
I just told him that I didn't want to do this and that it hurt me.
According to the brothers, they ultimately rebelled and threatened to tell outsiders about the alleged abuse. Lyle Menendez said his parents then responded by threatening the sons.
I don't have any doubts that my father and mother would have killed us.
So they killed instead.
I just walked into the room, I just started firing, and I don't know. I didn't think about these things. I didn't think, where was this, where was that? I just started firing, and I don't know.
And Jose and Kitty Menendez were dead.
I just started crying a lot harder. At one point I started to scream. It was awful, and I couldn't handle what I was seeing.
Prosecutors have said the brothers should have gone to the police about the molestation allegations, and the prosecutors also said the only reasons the brothers killed their parents were because they hated them and they wanted to get their hands on their parents' money. The prosecutors asked Lyle and Erik Menendez about a spending spree within days of their parents' death, a spree during which the brothers purchased Rolex watches, even a Porsche sports car.
So you just went in and you just charged them?
Right.
The same way you just went in and shot your parents? You weren't thinking?
No, that's very different.
Prosecutors also pointed out that the brothers told a psychologist about the murders, but never told the psychologist anything about any molestation allegations. Defense attorneys contend the brothers were too ashamed to talk about it then. Leslie Abramson, who represents Erik, kept returning to the subject of Jose Menendez's alleged sexual abuse. The prosecutors say this is really a simple case.
These people were cold-bloodedly slaughtered by their two sons.
Ann McDermott, Los Angeles.
The current Netflix drama was not the first to tell the story of Lyle and Erik. Back in 1994, here's what happened when the real Menendez jury watched the 90s movie about the shocking murders.
You just watched Honor Thy Father and Mother, a docudrama on the Menendez trial, but the real drama was behind the scenes during the deliberations. Ron Reagan Jr. watched the movie with the real Menendez jury.
It must have seemed strange, watching a television dramatization of a case they'd already lived through. Watching actors who they said looked remarkably like their real-life counterparts. Susan Blakely as Leslie Abramson, David Barone as Erik, and Billy Warlock as Lyle Menendez. It all seemed unpleasantly familiar, reminding them of the 6 months they had spent in a Van Nuys, California courtroom, watching and listening as lawyers argued the case of Lyle and Erik Menendez, brothers on trial for the 1989 shotgun slaying of their parents. After weeks of deliberation, 2 juries returned deadlocked. And tonight, nothing's changed.
I heard from the back row that this movie would convict them. That's what I heard from the back row.
Not for me.
They quickly made the transition from television fiction to the painful reality they experienced.
What's interesting here is you all see the same movie, and I think you have perhaps a different perception of the movie, which mirrors what happened in the courtroom.
When you don't have evidence that states something has occurred, I just don't know how people believe that it occurred.
When you want to believe something bad enough, you'll believe it. The evidence is absolutely overwhelming that, I mean, what it was premeditated, cold-blooded, malicious, thought-out murder.
But the women sitting behind you, but I think the women felt sorry for him. I think it almost became like a love fest.
Oh!
Oh,
After listening to them argue, their inability to reach
a love fest! They're like, and the women are like, oh, please.
Women felt sorry for him. I think it almost became like a love fest. Almost.
After listening to them argue, their inability to reach a verdict at the trial seemed less astonishing than inevitable. They've paid for their lack of consensus. They've found friends unwilling to understand their ordeal, and strangers likely to see them as fools. They see themselves as misunderstood.
I'm just not the same person that I used to be.
2 years after their first trial, Lyle and Erik were retried, and this time the outcome was much different for the two.
Found guilty of murdering their parents. Ann McDermott reports.
For Lyle Menendez, accused of killing his mother and father, the verdict was guilty. Guilty of murder in the first degree for the deaths of both Jose and Kitty Menendez. And his brother Erik received the same guilty verdicts. Both were also found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, and both also were found guilty of murder with special circumstances. Circumstances that in this case included lying in wait for their parents, circumstances that make the brothers eligible for the death penalty. No television cameras were allowed inside to record their reactions, but one courtroom observer, author Dominic
So the first trial was televised. The second one, they took the essay defense off the table, and there was no cameras. You hear me? Talk about some fucking corruption. I mean, make that make sense.
Dunn told reporters later what he saw.
There was absolute silence throughout. Erik and Lyle did not react in any way. I saw no tears from them. They did not look at each other.
Monday, the penalty phase of the case will begin. That's when the Menendez lawyers will argue for life imprisonment, and the prosecution will argue for death. Meanwhile, the lawyers and other principals in the case will have to keep their thoughts to themselves, at least for now.
It is hereby ordered that the defendants and all attorneys of record in this case and or the agents for such attorneys make no public comment about this case until the penalty phase has been concluded and the jury discharged.
The lawyers for the Menendez brothers had argued that the brothers shot and killed Jose and Kitty Menendez because they feared their parents would kill them, a fear that the young men claimed was a result of years of abuse at their parents' hands. During their first trials, which ended more than 2 years ago, jurors could not make up their minds. This time, it was different. This time, it was guilty. And for District Attorney Gil Garcetti, those verdicts were a welcome respite from a string of high-profile losses suffered by his office in recent years, including the trials of rapper Snoop Doggy Dogg, O.J. Simpson, and the including the trial.
Look at Snoop Dogg. I forgot about Snoop Dogg's trial.
For Snoop Doggy Dogg.
Oh my God. I feel really old.
O.J. Simpson and the first Menendez trials. And McDermott, Los Angeles.
All right, that is that. So tomorrow night, guys, we're going to watch this Netflix in the Discord. I'm curious what I think we covered all of the Menendez. Yeah, we did. Okay, our last topic is Stern's family. Parents. This is some mind-blowing shit, man. Or wait, I got a video I've got to send to myself to go along with these documents. So 68% of you think that they should be released. I know, murder was the case that they gave me. Damn, I wonder if that was televised. Probably not. Oh, we've got a Snoop Dogg for you. Okay, let me pull this out. Pull this up, I mean. You binged it on Netflix? Yeah, there's a different one coming out. Watch, I'll show you guys. I can't believe this whole Menudo thing. This could open up a whole can of worms with Jose Menendez and Menudo. So there's a new one October 5th, I thought. Oh, 7th. Shit. Sorry, the 7th. Here's a trailer.
Everyone asks why.
Okay, so not tomorrow. 5th, 6th, 7th. Monday night. Monday night.
We killed our parents. Maybe now people can understand the truth. My name is Erik Menendez. My name is Lyle Menendez, calling you from Donovan Correctional Facility. Lyle was the only person that had ever protected me. What happened that night is very well known, but so much hasn't been told.
If anyone had written this for a script in Hollywood, the Hollywood people would have gone, no way.
The Menendez case is one of the most infamous criminal trials in America. The brothers accused of the murder of their wealthy parents in Beverly Hills.
It was like an incredible soap opera.
Jose was a successful businessman. Kitty was the caring mother. 2 boys, emblematic of wealth and privilege. Why would you kill your parents?
As the prosecutor, I knew it was plain old greed.
It was a media spectacle from the beginning. So we were not the ones who told the story of our life. We looked like the perfect family, but behind the walls, something very wrong was happening.
What did he do to you?
I'm sorry.
Now there's the TikTok movement to free the Menendez.
There's a new generation that support the brothers.
People are looking at the case with fresh eyes.
2 kids don't commit this crime for money. And there's people that believe I shouldn't spend the rest of my life in prison.
That judge was determined he was going to get a conviction.
These kids went through some horrible things. I'm telling you now, it's all fake.
We're the
And if you
kids
don't know
in
it's
America.
Fake, that pisses me off.
Whoa.
There is no evidence saying they're not guilty.
We would much rather lose the murder trial than talk about the 6 secrets of the family.
Okay, so Monday. We'll watch it on Monday. What is this? You're not going anywhere. Where do you think you're going? You'll never work a day in your life. You don't know how to do anything. You can't survive. Don't want to be here anymore. Don't care. I just want to be. This is like a drawing of. I can't wait to watch this. So Monday night, you guys. It's a date. It's a date. The rabbit hole goes very deep. All of this stuff that's being exposed. Oh, that's what I wanted to show you guys. Was the Menudo thing. So watch this. Jose Menendez. Menudo. Molestation. Watch. Look at this. The dark connection between Jose Menendez and Menudo. An obsession with Ricky Martin. The brothers Menendez case is closely connected with the Latino boom in music, which started with Grupo Menudo. There's a young Ricky Martin. According to the documentary, Jose Menendez, a senior executive at it was RCA. Sorry, not Sony. I was wrong. It wasn't Sony. With RCA Records, had a close relationship with Menudo, as his company signed the band. However, what the documentary reveals goes beyond a professional relationship. Roy Rossello, a former member of Menudo, stated that Jose Menendez sexually abused him when he was 14 years old. According to Rossello, this abuse took place at the Menendez family's home in New Jersey. Among the most shocking claims is Jose Menendez's alleged obsession with the band Menudo, particularly with Ricky Martin, who was also a member of the group. I know, Adrian, I might need... Oh my God, look at that eyeball. Ugh. Although the documentary does not delve into the exact details of this alleged obsession, several interviewees mentioned that Menendez was overly interested in the band, raising questions about his relationship with the young members, right? Sony, RCA, tomato. In a clip from the documentary, a person close to Menudo states, Jose Menendez was obsessed with Menudo, which adds an even more disturbing layer to the abuse accusations. The documentary not only sheds light on the... Why is there a pregnancy test? The documentary not only sheds light on these new details about Menudo, but also strengthens the Menendez brothers' claims of abuse by their father. In an interview, Erik Menendez expressed his sadness upon learning that another person, like Roy Rossello, was also a victim of his father. I always knew my father was an abuser, but I never wanted this truth to come out in such a painful way for someone else. Damn, Pine, thank you for gifting a membership to the Clicker Crew. Lucid, you'll have to join us in Discord and make sure you give a shout out to Pine for that. He said, I always knew my father was an abuser, but I never wanted this truth to come out in such a painful way for someone else. Was Ricky Martin abused?
Big bombshell from former Menudo member Roy Rossello. He says that Jose Menendez drugged and sexually assaulted him before he was brutally killed alongside his wife by their sons, Lyle and Erik. I worked on this story a lot at the Daily News. It was a national story, probably international in some aspects. I went to the trial out in L.A., not a long time, but a few times. Met Robert Rand, who's an author who wrote a great book about the Menendez brothers. One of his books, I think, was turned into a...
Yes, Robert Rand has a really good book on this. I forgot about that book. I'm like obsessed with this case. I'm so glad it's coming to light again.
A TV series or show I think it was a series. And nice guy, knows an awful lot about this stuff. And he's the person who told me, and he's not lying. He said, Ricky Martin was on tape explaining that Jose Menendez sexually assaulted him. And I think at the time his manager was Benny Medina, who's a very powerful, popular, J-Lo's manager. Benny's had a lot of people.
Oh,
he's gay himself. And he did not want that information that Ricky so bravely gave to it was to Robert Rand. And at the end of the day, all the stuff he had that...
did you just hear J-Lo mentioned? I mean, you guys, this shit runs deep. Thank you again, Pine.
Really would have been such a bombshell. It went nowhere. It just went nowhere. Now, what they're not saying about this incident is how exactly Roy claims to have known Jose during the time of this incident. But, it's not outside the realm of possibility. If the guy was a sex nut and a pedophile, the way he treated his kids, if you are to believe their testimony in which they cried, I mean, I was there when they cried. I mean, I saw veins in their forehead pop out when they were explaining what happened to them.
Oh, my God. Didn't I say the same thing? Oh, my God.
God almighty.
I did. I said those veins are sticking out in his forehead. That is pure, raw emotion.
Crystal clear.
And this murder was one of the first podcasts I did way back, almost 6 years ago. The show was very different back then. And I was such a neophyte at it. It probably sounds ridiculous today. I wish I could take back the first 40, 50 shows I did and redo them, but it is what it is. It's a new field and you got to feel it out. But, when you see two brothers on the stand with such agony on their faces, I don't think you can coach that. I don't think you can instill that in somebody who doesn't have great acting ability. And the Menendez brothers did not. And I believe what they said about their dad, and you gotta remember, Lyle Menendez worked as an executive in the music business during the 80s and 90s. He was very tight with the Latin community. And look, the fact that he was the way it's alleged he was is the biggest open secret in the music industry. Everybody's talked about this, mentioned it, brought it up, then it dies down.
Yes.
Well, May 2nd, we'll get to be able to stream Rossello's story from Peacock, but from the trailers and promos that were released this week, there's no doubt that this guy is leveling a very serious allegation that seems to more or less jibe with what Lyle and Erik also claimed about their dad in the 90s, that he would sexually abuse them for years during their childhood. I mean, the linchpin of their defense, really what it boiled down to was telling the jury that they lived in fear from the abuse. And they only killed their parents after claiming their dad threatened them when they said they would expose what he'd done. And the mother was like, just a shithead. Didn't want to know, didn't want to hear.
Yep, in denial.
Put her head in the ground when the kids would complain.
Mm-hmm.
There was one time where one of the brothers had white shorts. I think it was Erik. I forget which brother. One of them had white shorts on. His father had allegedly done something to his anus. And there was a red spot.
Oh, my God.
And the mother didn't want to know about it. What mother doesn't want to know about a red blood spot on your kid's ass?
Truth.
Fucking people are unbelievable. So I believe this story wholeheartedly because I remember what those kids said, that the father would take them into the bathroom and tell them there's nothing wrong with being with another man or your father, because this is what Greek soldiers did before war. They got together and men were with men and women with women. It's totally natural. He just drilled this into their head, not to mention what he drilled into their butts, because I remember hearing stories about him putting electric toothbrushes, anything he could find, he put inside.
Yes,
like a real piece of shit.
That's right.
So
he did. They test. Welcome, guys. I just gifted 5 memberships. Oh, Michaela, Vicky, OG Fish, Passion Flower, and Aristocat. Welcome to the clickers. Right, Judy Garland. I mean, it's nasty. They take advantage of these kids. Welcome, guys. Make sure you join our members or our Discord. Nancy Grace welcomes you. If you would like to become a member, all you have to do is exclamation point member, or you can scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen.
I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man. Click, 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 click. It's real easy, man.
Yes, they are in for life.
For this story coming out, and no one really has ever publicly backed this story that Jose might have sexually abused minors. Everybody's thought about it in Hollywood. Some have the goods, like Robert Rand. But the question is, will it have any impact on the Menendez brothers' case? Because their lawyers have been trying for years to secure a new trial. They've had a few unsuccessful appeals, but I'm telling you right now, I got a hunch, and I'm good with hunches. I got a hunch this news will have them getting that appeal and, dare I say, released from prison.